The Honourable Colin Holt.
A bugger really, because I prefer interjection to spur you on. But thank you. It's actually I've actually got extensive speech notes here, which is quite unusual for me. I think I've written 3 extensive speech notes. One was my inaugural speech. The other was on delivery of the My Life, My Choice report from the Select Committee, and this is the next one. And I'll try my hardest to keep to the script, although I've already gone off it, obviously, because there's some really important things I want to say in here, and it's more about thank yous to the people who supported me. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the reflection of my time in this place, and I actually don't like talking about myself particularly much, so that's why I want to concentrate on thanking those people who have supported me through my time here. And look, if members have got important parliamentary business to attend to, I have got no problem with if they want to leave the chamber and attend to those things. It would never offend me one little bit. As Wordsworth Longfellow once said, we judge ourselves by what we feel we are capable of doing, while others judge us by what we have already done. And I'm sure that there'll be plenty of people in this place and also in the electorate and in the state of Western Australia that will judge me on what I've been able to achieve and probably not able to achieve, and on my contribution. But I prefer to reflect on my performance from my viewpoint, and probably as my strongest critic. Do I think I've done some good things here in this place and in the communities I represent? I would say generally yes, and I'm happy to say that. I think I've helped where I've been able to, and I've worked hard to deliver for the people of the South West. But do I think I could have done more? Am I capable of doing more? I would say absolutely. I think there's always unfinished business when you take on roles like this, and there's unfinished business in every job you do. And it's difficult to leave some of those unfinished business behind for someone else to take up the cudgel and deliver on. So undoubtedly, while I feel happy about my role and my ability to deliver, I think there's some gaps in that as well. But again, that's from my viewpoint. As one Nationals MP said to me when I first started in this place, this job is like a never-ending flock of sheep that you've got to drench. As you get through one yard, the next bloody mob are right at the entrance of the race waiting to be drenched. And you get through that mob and the next one are there. Because there's always a problem to solve, there's always an issue to resolve or to pursue, and there's always people to help when you're in this job, because they just keep coming, the issues keep coming, and the people keep coming through your door. Recently, we went to, my staff and I did a bit of a farewell tour around the South West, and we went to Dwellingup. And we met the craft group there, because I used to go and do a mobile electorate office. I always timed it for the craft group, because the ladies who came to craft there knew everything that was going on in Dwellingup. And so turned up for a cup of tea, as we normally do, and scones and cake and all the rest of it. And they reminded me of some of the things that I'd helped them with. And I hadn't forgotten them, but I'd sort of put them on the back burner. Because in my mind, it was like, that was the immediate problem to solve at that time, which you work hard to do. And then you say, you beauty, the community are happy, but you know, the next problem or the next issue or the next person to help is just coming through the door. Happened when I also went to the Harvey Shire Council. They reminded me of a role I played with them to deliver on their recreation centre. And again, it was one of those things where I'd forgotten the role that I played. And really it was just about, let's try to get that done and we'll move on to the next one. And I even now, today, I went to Albany on Tuesday with the Minister for Veteran Affairs from Canberra, and that was all about solving the next issue for the RSL down there and to work with the city to deliver some outcomes. So they just keep coming on and on. But I do recognise that my time here has come, and I'm quite happy with all that. I made that decision clearly, but I really strongly believe that I still have some things to offer the people of Western Australia. Whatever that thing looks like, I don't know yet, but I'm more than willing to and ready to move on. And as we all know here, the role of an MP is unique and strange, and difficult to understand unless you happen to be in it. There's no training, there's no guidelines, there's no real way of doing it, and if you're lucky you can find an MP or an ex-MP or a mentor to help you give them some of your ideas about how you should operate the job. But it's always clear to me that you have to do it your own way. And I'm more than comfortable in the fact that I've been able to do it my way. And I acknowledge that it's certainly not the way of everybody. And some people say I'm probably, the way I do things lacks some merit or is a bit crazy. But that's the way I do it, and I'm more than comfortable with how I've done it. I'm reminded of a poem by Shel Silverstein called The Perfect High. And I encourage members to Google it because I can't read it in Hansard because it's got some expletives in it. But it's really about a poem about being happy within yourself and being confident and comfortable in how you act. And don't always keep trying to look for the next high, the next high, the next high, because the next high is found within yourself. And I encourage members to look at that. And I don't want to be accused of some sort of midlife crisis Zen yoga thing, although that is kind of me, and I'm kind of at that point. But I think the point I'm trying to make is I'm actually fairly comfortable in who I am and what I've been able to achieve and the way I've gone about it. And I totally acknowledge that it's not for everybody. I came into this place pretty unexpectedly, perhaps a lot like the people who are going to be sworn in next week or the week after, and some of those who got sworn in last week, probably a little unexpectedly. But there's actually nothing wrong with that. I was asked at the time back in 2008 by the Leader of the Nationals, then Leader of the Nationals, Honourable Brenda Grills, and Wendy Duncan, who was the President of the party, said, we've got no one, can you put your name on the Southwest ticket? Because the preferred candidate pulled out. And I'd been involved with the party for about 3 years and I was actually Vice President of the party at that time. So we need someone who kind of knows a bit about the Royalties for Region story, who can at least stand up and string a few words together, which of course I couldn't. And I accepted the challenge. And I was happy to because, as I said, I've been involved since 2005. I came to the party when I was running a community development company, and all our work was with almost exclusively with regional communities. And I took the decision that I wanted to contribute more to those regional communities in whatever way I could. I didn't really have any ambitions around representation or leadership in this space. I just sort of got involved and said I'm willing to help where I can, and became Vice President and then President and a Member of Parliament. But I never really took that step until one of my business partners, Lee, who is very, very good at poking people in the ribs and suggesting that it's time for you to step up and it's time for you to take the place at a table that we keep saying other people have got to do. So I was more than happy to do that. Put my name on the ticket. It was on the back of the early call by Premier Carpenter to call an early election. And you could have called it an unexpected result. Perhaps not as unexpected as what we've seen, but an unexpected result. The people of the Southwest hadn't elected a Nationals MP for 8 years. Wendy and Brendan said to me at the time, "Don't worry, mate, you're not going to get elected. You can go back to your day job. It's no good. We just need someone to put their name on it." I think we've heard plenty of those stories in the coming up, and I bet the members opposite have heard plenty of those stories in the last couple of weeks. And as it turned out, the Royalties for Regions was a new policy, a new concept for country people. We'd also, at that point in time, become very much an independent party. And I think on the back of that and preference flows, obviously, that's how we get elected in this place when you're a minor party or you never quite get to a quota. I found myself elected. And the good people of the Southwest have elected a Nationals MP in 3 elections since. Never with a full quota, always relying on some overflows, generally from our good friends in the Liberal Party. but they've embraced the Nationals' policies of royalties for regions with an independent stance. I have to say that you would find that I am probably strident anti-coalitionist in the National Party. I strongly believe that when one vote, one value was introduced in the Legislative Assembly, that the power of independence helped us rally against that tide and delivered us not the expected result of 1 or 2 members in the LA, but we actually went to 10 members and we actually grew to 12. And it's clear in my mind that the independent stance was a major factor in that. I remember being president of the party, and I used to have to go to Canberra quite a bit and talk to our federal colleagues at federal management. And of course, if you'd studied anything around National Party politics around Australia, you'd find that every state has a different model that they implement, and the federal guys have got their own as well, which is coalition, and coalition New South Wales, coalition in Victoria. There is no national in South Australia or Tasmania. We're seen as the kind of the rump over the West, which try to break the rules and do things differently. And then you have the LNP in Queensland. So I used to have to go over there quite a bit, and there was a time when Tony Crook was elected as the Nationals member for O'Connor after a 30-odd-year career of Wilson Tuckey. And I often went with Tony, and the poor bugger, we left him with the unenviable task of prosecuting our independent stance from the West Australian Nationals in the federal sphere. A great challenge for him. And I stood in that federal management quite a lot of times and got yelled at by quite a lot of federal MPs and state presidents about, you West Australians, you are going to be the ruin of every government. And I just turned around and said, well, I think that you guys in Queensland, the conjoined model are going to be the ruin of the Nationals. And I'll stand by that every time. I have to say, Tony Crook, in my mind, is a bit of a political hero, probably unsung, in that we just sent him over there with the support that we could give him, but we were never on site to actually help him, to prosecute that argument. And I think he deserves some great accolades from the party in what he did. And I have to point out, ably supported by the acting Speaker, the Honourable Martin Aldridge, who worked with him very closely during that time. And happy birthday, Mr Acting President. And Marty and Tony Crook did a sterling job in prosecuting our argument. And it's a pretty lonely old job, I think, when you're trying to prosecute that all by yourself. And I'm sure the crossbenchers understand that perfectly. And the new incoming Greens member is going to understand that perfectly when they're here by themselves. It's very difficult. Now, I've completely gone off script, of course, as I knew I would. I'll try to pick some of it up. Since I've becoming here, I've been very fortunate to play a number of roles in this place, and I think you can't take on those roles without the support of your national colleagues, especially in this place. And I think, from my perspective, the National Party LC team has been working together very, very well. For 12 years, we've had members come and go in my time, and I always think that we've worked very well together. We're all different people. We all come with different viewpoints, different backgrounds, different opinions, and that's how it should be. If we want to represent the people we represent, we need to be as diverse as them. But I think what we've been able to demonstrate is that through robust debate, argument about viewpoints and rigour in your thinking, you can actually get to an outcome that everyone works towards. And I feel very confident that the members of the National Party who have served in this place, but also more broadly, have done that. And I honestly thank them for their support, and comradeship over that time. Because like I said, you can't do it by yourself. And every member of the major party would know that. And crossbench and minor parties, who very few members would know how hard it is to deliver by themselves. I thank all my National Party colleagues, both past and present, for their support over the time. They've all had an influence on me in some way. Again, I'm probably, and this may not come as a surprise to anybody, I'm probably the least left in the National Party room. And I think I've got no problem with that actually at all. And, you know, often I remember I said in my inaugural speech in here, someone from the Labor Party came over and said, "Are you sure you're sitting on the right side of the house?" And I am, because I strongly believe that if you want to influence the culture of an organisation, the culture of the party, and you want them to reflect your values, you better get involved in it. And I think that's what I've done. I've inserted myself into the National Political Party, and I hope during my time I've been able to put some of my values and culture into that organisation. I've got no doubt that once I leave there'll be others who come and influence in other ways, but that's okay too, because your time is when your time is, and you contribute as much as you can at the time it happens. I would especially like to acknowledge the Leader of Opposition, Mia Davies, who got elected at the same time as I did into this House. And so I've seen her grow from a Legislative Council member, and we sat up there and to share stories and to support each other. And I've seen her grow into an extremely hard-working LA member who is completely committed to the people of Western Australia and who is completely capable of doing a fantastic job as a Leader of the Opposition. And I know that her father will be very proud of her, and her family will be very proud of you, and I'm pretty proud of you too. And I just think you're doing amazing stuff, so keep it up. Also served 2 terms on the Environment and Public Affairs Committee, which would seem strange to most, but I actually requested to go into those committees because I actually really enjoyed in my mind, it's the most democratic and engaging committee with the people of Western Australia that you can get. It's based on petitioning systems, which is the whole point of engaging with the community and the people you represent. And it provides a fantastic conduit for those voices in the community into our parliament. And I'll be as strong a defender of it as I possibly can. And one of the reports, and I encourage the ongoing members to think about report number 54, which has got a long-winded title, but I'm going to do it anyway. The functions, processes and procedures of the Standing Committee on Environment and Public Affairs. Are they clear for petitioners, and do they reflect its core petitions role? And I encourage the next Parliament, the make-up of this House, to look at that report and implement the changes. And I notice there's a motion on the notice paper from the Honourable Simon O'Brien, which has a little bit of conflict with this report. So I look forward to seeing the debate and how that might shake out in terms of what that standing committee looks like into the future. I think that committee, to me, has done some really good work, and I'm really proud of the work that we've done as a committee. Committee systems in our council are seen as, I think, really, really valuable, and probably some of the most valuable work that's done across the parliament and across other parliaments who don't see it as the same way. There's a report, I know in the 38th Parliament, my first term there's a report, it's called the Inquiry into the Transportation of Detained Persons. The implementation of the coroner's recommendations in relation to the death of Mr Ward and related matters. And Madam President was actually the Deputy Chair of that committee at the time. Good to see you, Madam President. And in my opinion, just the committee saying that we're going to look into this issue. We're going to inquire into how the coroner's recommendations are going to be implemented, put a spotlight on the whole issue, and bang, things started to change. The recommendations started to get implemented, and there were changes tangible changes you could see in how they detained people and the transport of people was happening. And I think that's a great outcome. Didn't even have to deliver the report, because as soon as you put the spotlight on it, they did something about it. Another example of the committee work was in the 40th Parliament, and that is Committee Report number 52, which is punitive, not protective, when the mandatory registration of young people is not based on risk. It was only tabled in May 2020, and it was based on a petition with just 2 signatures. That's how powerful the petition system can be. And this is about how young people get treated within our judiciary and how they go on a mandatory reporting list, which is completely unfair. And everyone that we took statements from, we called in as witnesses, agreed with the premise that this needs to be looked at. And I'm encouraging the government members who helped pen this report, who were on the committee, to take it up with the new government. And I would like to make sure that the Minister who represents the Minister of Police in this place, Honourable Stephen Dawson, takes a copy of that report and raises it with the Minister for Police, because everyone is waiting for the change. The police are waiting for the change, the judiciary are waiting for the change, and the community are waiting for the change. And we should be doing it as a priority. So good luck with that, and I hope the Honourable Sam Rowe and the Honourable Matthew Swinburne can take that up. I tried not to be too political, but I just had to shove that in there. But I think I also need to thank the staff of that committee, who had to put up with me quite a bit. And I can be annoying, and they knew I was annoying, and they tried to circumvent me quite a lot of ways, but I stuck to my guns. But they were very, very supportive, very nice, but I was a pain in the proverbial, and they know it. But you can't do it without the staff of the committee working as they do to deliver on the outcomes that the committee want to see. So thank you to them. One of the other roles I obviously played, I was a parliamentary secretary for a number of ministers in a number of portfolio areas, and I thank those ministers for that opportunity and their support in that. And of course, I was a minister for almost 2 years in the Liberal National Alliance government. And the thing about a minister's role is that if you're fair dinkum about it, you work bloody hard and you ask your ministerial office to work very hard alongside you. And in fact, you probably spend more time with your ministerial staff and your ministerial office than you do your own family and your own loved ones. And they become your family for that period of time, because you build up a whole heap of trust and respect, and you know each other very well. And we worked hard for those 2 years, almost 2 years. I owe a great deal of gratitude to those people in the ministerial office. They're all wonderful people, and many of them I always call them a friend. In fact, some of them I talked into owning a racehorse with me, so that's... And you need to be good friends when you have a racehorse together, I can tell you, because there's not a lot of uptime. It's mostly about non-success, really. But Karen, the Divine Miss M, Sue and Terry, who were willing to stay with me after being in Tuck Wardren's office, who I took over from, and Tuck Wardren, who I modelled myself on, including my haircut, he set the standard in that office, because if everyone knows Tuck Wardren, he's a very friendly, gregarious bloke, and he set a culture in that office which I was very fortunate to move into. Kay, who rocked up with her bag trolley as housing advisor, even though I hadn't even asked for an advisor yet, but she claimed a desk and she wasn't leaving. She was of great value. Andrew, Donna and Andrea, who I somehow talked into coming to give us a hand for a couple of years, and they gave up a lot of their life to come and pitch in, and I thank them. And then there was, of course, Alex and Ben as the Chief of Staff. And they really who ran the show, and they kept the team together and working in the same direction as we were all trying to go. I think they're both extraordinary young men, and they saved my bacon on quite a lot of occasions, and most notably on a number of small bar tours that they insisted that I do as Minister for Liquor. And we won't mention the Varnish Bar, although I don't have a lot of memories of the Varnish Bar, but I took my role as a Minister for Liquor and gaming very seriously. And we even delivered some really good legislation reform in this place when I was Minister, with bipartisan support around the supply of alcohol for minors and other things to the Liquor Act, which have been hanging around for 4 or 5 years. But Ben and Alex, their professionalism, their intelligence and hard work is a great asset to them and a great credit to them, and it holds them in great stead for all the organisations they work for now, and I need to thank them very much. I think my approach here has always been to be quite collaborative, both here in Parliament and in my electorate. I just think you get more done that way. And I know it doesn't work all the times, but sometimes it does. But that's the way I was always going to work. And even when I ask questions without notice in this place to a minister, often it's for me to raise issues to them that they probably need to look into. Because I know that when you work with departments, and we've got mega departments now, you just can't know what's going on at every level. And I remember when I was a minister on that side of the house and people would ask me questions, I'd go, geez, that's a really good question. I want to know the answer to that. Thanks for raising it with me. So I'd go back to my department and say, what does this mean? Why are they asking this? What's going on? And to me, it was like a great revelation, because I understood more about what the department was doing. And so I think there is great value in questions with the notice if people want to treat them the right way. So as Minister, you know, we did a lot of hard work. The West Australian TAB, sale of West Australian TAB, was a hot topic at the time. I know it was dear to the heart of the Honourable Darren West, who turned up to every community meeting that I went to and argued against me, but only then to flip over when he got back into government. And I remember I had to rally against the member for Murray Wellington, who was out there giving out bumper stickers, no sale for the WATAB. And even at the very beginning, the railway board and the CEO were completely against it and came out and rallied against it. I took it on to me, I needed to be better informed about the issue, because I thought at the time that was my role, and it was my role to the industry to ensure that I was the most informed I could be if I was going to advocate for any particular position. And I found that as a rewarding and difficult situation, because you'd had front up to whole industry who would often yell at you because the old way always delivered for them. My point was, we don't know what the new way could. Let's see what we can deliver if we test it. And we never quite got there for a variety of reasons, which probably will need another hour to explain. It's interesting, when I was Minister for Liquor Gaming, also regional casinos came up on the agenda. And I went and visited a few of them, and I went to Alice Springs. And the Alice Springs Casino said, oh, no, we do it because we want to see international travel and international tourism opportunities. And you know, they're the ones who bring in all the money. It's not true. They have a thing in casinos called churn. And it's the local people who provide the churn. And it's the local people who turn up there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Monday or a Tuesday who are providing the churn. They're the ones putting the 10 cents in or the 20 cents in. And that's what keeps them going. And I just couldn't back any regional casino for that issue. It would be in my opinion, a disaster for regional communities. I understand the tourism argument, but that's just the argument, it just doesn't deliver on it. So I was more than happy to get myself across that. And in the housing portfolio, I was the minister that took the $560 million social housing investment program to Cabinet and got that approved. And that changed the ways that we did some of that social housing in those times. However, my time as minister was brief, and that was mainly due to party leadership change. And I made the decision at the time that I was going to be the collateral damage to enable a smoother, inverted commas, leadership transition. Because the leadership change in the political world, as we all know here, is never easy and is almost always ugly. And I thought it was pretty ugly at the time. So I made the decision that I was the one who needed to step back to make a smoother transition. But you know what? We all move on. And just like every election, we move on. You take what you take your medicine and you move on with it and try to contribute in whatever ways you can. I'd also like to thank the staff of Parliament House and the Legislative Council, and also those in this House who have supported the Parliamentary National Team and the National Party. This is one of the strangest workplaces you'd ever want to visit. But at least I found that the people here are generally pretty sensible, and they're just like you and me. And you know, there's been a number of staff who have come and gone over the time. There's some who have endured beyond me, came here before me and still here, and will still be here. And I hope that I have afforded them the respect they deserve, even though I often call them chicken or brother or sister. And there's no offence, it just means a point of affection, and it's a colloquial language that I use. But they've never shown any offence, and in fact, they've always shown me respect back, and I hope that they think that I've respected them, because there's definitely no disrespect in the way I talk to them. In fact, I have got a great deal, many friends in this place, and I thank them for their friendship and support, and I'd like to name some of them, but you know what'll happen is you'll miss someone out and they'll want to come and egg you later on. No, they wouldn't. No. But I hope they know who they are, because I've really enjoyed our friendship. I've found interaction with the staff just as rewarding as anything. And I really thank them for that. And one day I'll get to play that game of golf, and I'll get that guy who wants to have half a horse with me, because at some point we'll do that. But I just want to say thank you to all them. I started my office in Albany for about the first 4 years, and then I moved it to Eton. And I've been very, very lucky to have a fairly stable staff in my electoral office over that time. And in fact, if you ever go to Albany, you'll still see the signage on my office wall in Albany, even though I left there 7 years ago. They moved quick down there, and they haven't been able to rent the office out, so I've kind of got free advertising there. I kind of regret taking off the really big sign now when I left, but I thought I might be able to put it up in Eton, but I haven't been able to. I think one of the most common threads with all the electoral staff that I've worked for is that I'm really not quite sure who was the boss. And in fact, I'm pretty sure I wasn't. I'm pretty sure most of them were. And as we all know in this job and as country members, the people in the office are your front line and your point of contact in the community, and they carry your reputation as much as anything. And I think in this sense I've been very, very fortunate. I'd just like to touch on a few names if I can. So there was Sam, who started with me as a fresh, enthusiastic 21 or 22-year-old. We both had no idea what this thing was about, but I know one thing he taught me than I ever taught him. He was a great help. Roxy, a wonderful, generous spirit, who was a great asset to me, never pulled any punches, not afraid of telling me, that's a pretty dumb idea, that's not going to work. And if you ever know Roxanne, you'll know what she meant. She didn't say it that way either, I can tell you. Then there's Michelle, who recently joined my office around 17 months ago, and who hit the ground running and is an amazing woman who knows how to get things done. A great start to her electoral office career, and I hope it continues for many years to come, because she will be a great asset for any office. Then there was Jules, who stuck with me for quite a long time. What can you say? She was a tireless boss who drove me all the way, a smart and savvy operator, totally committed to the community and their political representation. She always went above and beyond the call of duty, not because I asked her, but because she wanted to. She was enrolled in it. We had some funs and we had some tears. We had the odd angry face, which she would remember. And we had some wine. And I've got to tell you, she is the best at picking wine. And in fact, at lunch, she did it again. Picked the best wine on the menu. She's just quite extraordinary at it. Jules, I'm not sure how I can thank you enough for your friendship and support. And relationships are established on shared experiences, and we've had a lot. And when I look back on it, we've done a lot, and we've still got things to do. So thank you. I just want to quickly mention also Cody, who came into some work experience in my office and who is a remarkable young woman who's starting out on her career and her family career. And she really brought a spark to our office with her kindness and her personality and her willingness to have a go, and she taught us a fair few things too. And I'd like to say good luck to Cody. And finally, I better talk about Vicky. She signed up for 4 years not knowing it would be 12. Our friendship started way back in Carnarvon 15 years before I was elected. So that, by my reckoning, is 27 years of working together or knowing each other. And I've got to say, through some pretty stressful times for us both. And she's been on her own journey. She is the most tolerant and understanding person I know, who is just the ideal face of the office. And we probably should have had her photo on the window, not mine, because we're doing much better looking at her every day than me. She's actually everything I'm not. She's well organised, she's meticulous and detailed, and I'm none of those things. I free will way too much. I reckon I must have driven her mad with my kind of organisation, which is a kind of organisation, but not her organisation, I'm going to tell you, and what my idea of detail was. But Vicky, I could not have done this job without you. In fact, I would never have done it without you. I would have pulled up stumps a long time ago. And thanks for signing up for what has been a great journey with me. I've always tried to be well-grounded and had a well-grounded viewpoint when I've been in this position. I think the bubble of Parliament is a very dangerous thing. And it is my family and friends that have kept me well-grounded. There is so much more to life than outside this place. And, you know, we talk for hours, and I'm doing it now, and I apologise, but we talk for hours in this place, and all the time, life and the world goes on around us. And I've tried not to be distracted by the bubble that we exist in. I want to mention the Spinifex crew, the Squealers mob, Jodie and Gaz group of friends, and the boys from the Harvey Golf Club, who really didn't care if I was an MP, a Minister of the Crown, or the feather duster I'm about to become, because they'll just rubbish me anyway, all the same they always have. And that's what I like. That's how it should be. They should be seeing me for who I am, not the title I am. And I'd also like to give some perspective of my time in this place from my viewpoint. So this is what has happened over the 12 years that I've been here in a personal sense. My father died a year before I was elected. When I first signed up, he said, "What the bloody hell do you want to do that for?" He never lived long enough to see me as a Member of Parliament. But I reckon he'd be saying the same thing around about now as well. Because I'm pretty sure his opinion would never change, and he'd say exactly the same thing. My mother is now almost 94. She has gone from an active senior living independently to now being in full-time care. And she really has had enough of this life. She wakes up every morning and asks, am I still here? And then when she realises, she says, that's a bugger. She really is ready to go. My daughter Ebony was 19 when I was sworn in. She is the most wonderful, remarkable and determined young woman you'd want to meet. I'll get there, members. She bought and ran her own cafe in Harvey when she was just 22. She is now a mother of 2 ratbag kids, Sienna and Neve, spelt the Irish way. Good luck with that. And she's completely supported by her brilliant husband, Matt, even though he's from Victoria and is a Collingwood fan. We've still adopted him. So I came into this place as a father and I leave as a grandfather. Back in 2009, when I was sworn in, our eldest son Zeke was 16 and he actually left home a year before that to tread his own pathway to an apprenticeship. He has been a fully qualified heavy diesel mechanic now for 8 years and is now an operator for Woodside. Working alongside his partner Megan, who we absolutely adore. A son I am very proud of, not just because of his work ethic, but because of the person he is. He cares about people and will always help when needed. Then we have Denzel and Fraser. The boys were 12 when I got here. We would bring them to dinner dressed in their oversized suits and shiny shoes. Well, they are now 24-year-old men, bigger and stronger than their father, which is not hard. I understand, I'm only 5'7" 3/4. And they are both forging their own pathways in life and making their own decisions in this world. To grow through their teenage years and high school stresses when their father was stretched between southwest communities, parliamentary roles and ministerial duties is a testament to the people they are. Floss and I even went away for 6 weeks during their Year 11 exams and to fend for themselves. And the fact that they did that and they survived it and did well in school is a real testament to men and a great credit to them. And I'm not sure why we ever did that. I think probably our selfish selves, but anyway. They have brought into our family Shelby, who we've really truly adopted and love, and Caitlin, who has been recently inducted and we haven't even scared her off yet. A few tests to come. But I want to thank all my children for their love and support, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time on that 12-year journey from my family's perspective because I think it's a perfect demonstration of why we do this job. It's not about what we get from the role, but it's what we can achieve for people in the community and the people we serve. So the ageing parent in need of increased medical support, the young businesswoman willing to take a risk and work hard, the young man wanting to get a trade and contribute to our industries, young adults working through their education, looking for opportunities that we in this place can help them create, we can help create. That is what I reflect on, and those things are what motivated me the most to get out of bed every day to try and achieve. Obviously not just for my family, but all those in the southwest and all over the state. That's what driven me, and that's why I wanted to be connected to the community rather than just rely on the bubble. I've been very fortunate to make the decision to leave this place on my own terms, I believe. I do so with the knowledge that I've worked very hard. I've done some good things that I'm proud of, but it's actually time for someone else to have a crack at this political arena. I also know I am leaving with still plenty of energy, capacity and passion to keep contributing to the WA community and its people in other ways. What that looks like yet, I do not know. But I am also a great believer in what you do in your past prepares you for the next stage of life or the next work you do. And I feel, and I must say that I feel very well prepared for that next part. Finally, I must make my last words today about my wife of 30 years, Floss. As you know. Firstly, I apologise in advance. I am going to be under your feet and annoying for some time while we both adjust to this new phase of life. Sorry about that. I know you're already regretting it. But can I say, no gift will ever be enough, no words will ever fully convey, and no actions will ever express how much I love you and appreciate you. Thank you for your unwavering support, especially over the last 12 years in this role, a role I was 100% committed to, but only because you were 100% with me all the way. And with that, Madam President, I thank the House for listening, and I wish you all well.